Hello, I'm Bill Tucker, in for vacationing Steve Malzberg. Tonight, after Donald Trump's quick trip south to the border, new polls show that the presidential race is tightening. Have we reached the turning point that Trump needs to win?
We did discuss the wall. We didn't discuss payment of the wall.
He didn't have the guts to look the Mexican president in the eye and bring up the central position in his campaign.
And what about the wall? Did the Donald chicken out or not? Dick Morris joins us to tear down the media's myths about the border. And a new investigation reveals that Hillary Clinton sent classified emails after she left the State Department. And Black Lives Matter blasts Democrats for trying to placate them. All of that and more tonight on the Steve Malzberg Show. Joining me now, Dick Morris, Newsmax political analyst and author of Armageddon, How Trump Can Beat Hillary. Welcome, Dick. Good to see you.
Well, good to see you. It looks like Trump is moving up dramatically.
It does indeed. In fact, it's really interesting. I'm not really much of a poll guy, but suddenly I find these polls very interesting because they're massive swings. And maybe that's where I should start. Is there an election that sticks out in your memory that has these similar kinds of wild swings and pollings between the two candidates?
Yeah, most do. This is not abnormal. In fact, there's actually less of a swing than you usually get. Dukakis was leading Bush by 17 points in August and lost by 8 points in the election. Bush was ahead of Gore by 18 points at this point, and the election was tied. These swings are normal. But what I think is unique about this is that it's very clear now that Trump is catching up to Hillary. And one of the reasons that that's happening is that Gary Johnson and Jill Stein, and the fourth candidates, are exerting an influence on this race. When you go from the four-way field, from the two-way field to a four-way field, Hillary loses 7 points and Trump loses only 3. So those candidates are really acting to draw people away from Hillary. And that's a strategy that Hillary never anticipated. Her strategy was just demonize Trump. You don't have to build yourself up. You're a lost cause with the American people. They hate you, but make them hate Trump more and you get elected president. But she didn't bet on the fact that there'd be 2 other candidates that people could vote for, particularly independents and people under 35. The other thing that's going on is that as Trump cleans up his act and does well in the Louisiana visit and well in the Mexico visit, his favorability has risen. Fox News has it rising from 39% to 46% in the most recent survey from the beginning of August to now. The highest Trump has ever been. So he's rehabbing himself. He's no longer seen as an unacceptable alternative. And Hillary is getting clobbered with the email releases and the pay for play and all of that stuff. And the New York Times basically coming out against her conduct at the foundation.
Yeah, well, it is fascinating. One of the things that I find really interesting about this poll is this is a Rasmussen poll. This was before Donald Trump went down and began to look very presidential and very statesmanlike with his visit down in Mexico. This was before Hillary Clinton became the object of yet more revelations about emails that the FBI found, and we learned that she sent classified emails from her private server. What in the world's going to happen, Dick? That's going to be interesting, I think, when those begin to figure into the equation. Or am I wrong?
I think Hillary will be behind in most polls after Labor Day. She bet the farm that she could make Trump unacceptable. Oh, you can't vote for that guy. He's wacko. He's a psychopath. He's off the wall. He's beyond the pale. You can't vote for that guy. But the minute you say, oh, yes, I can, and people jump that barrier, she has no issues because she cannot resolve and has not yet resolved the fundamental question in her campaign. Is she going to run as an extension of Obama or as the candidate of change?
And it will be a dilemma for her. And we are being told now, but Julian Assange is warning us that we are going to get some political revelations about both these candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. But he says in particular, some of the stuff that's about to come out on Ms. Clinton is going to be devastating. I know this is speculation, Dick. You're welcome to turn the question down if you want to, but what else could there be besides the things that we're already learning, which I think are pretty damaging?
Well, bear in mind that we are now learning gradually the contents of the 15,000 emails that Hillary deleted, the ones that she didn't think we could see. And she pretended it was about yoga lessons and Chelsea's wedding and personal comments, personal communications with Bill. But they weren't. They were about the explicit details of the pay-for-play schemes. And those details are coming out now. They're becoming clear. And 4 months ago, when you asked people, what don't you like about Hillary? It was primarily that she's untrustworthy and untruthful. Now it's that she's corrupt. And that's a different order of magnitude.
It is indeed, and I don't know that she can brush off that taint of corruption, because increasingly it seems every day we find out more about how donations to the Clinton Foundation resulted in favors by the state.
She had no strategy other than to demonize Trump, and that was a strategy developed within the context of a two-way race. And now she's in the middle of a four-way race. It's taking the pundit community time to get onto that. But Gary Johnson is about 9%, and Jill Stein, the Green Party, is at about 4%. If Johnson gets up to 15, he can actually be included in the debate, which would be a disaster for Hillary. Now, normally libertarian candidates drain votes from Republicans.
Right.
But in this case, because of who the candidates are, they drain votes much more from Hillary than from Trump.
That's going to be interesting. I have to ask you this as a political strategist, this next question. I am fascinated, and I will admit relieved, to hear Republican candidates, to hear Donald Trump actually look at black voters and say, what are you doing? What have you been doing? Have you stopped to look at how many broken promises the Democratic Party has made? Will you stop voting as a bloc and begin to examine your conscience and what's happening to you and in your community and look at the Republicans? I think that's a brilliant stroke. My question, kind of a combination, was is that all him, or is this a reflection of the new campaign staff that he has in place?
Well, everything is a reflection of him because he put the staff in place. And he's like the manager who keeps trying out pitchers till he gets one that he likes. The brilliance of the move is not just that it may be successful in winning some black votes, but it may be successful in reducing black turnout so that there's no fear of Donald Trump. Black turnout is historically 11% of the vote. Now, when Obama ran both times, it was 13%. And those 2 points go solidly Democrat. Now, Obama won the last election by 4 points. So half of his margin is the increased black turnout. And if Trump can knock that down, it'll be effective. And if Trump can rebut the concept that he's a racist and do that by overtly appealing for black voters, whether he gets them or not, it's going to help among white voters.
Well, it's interesting because he said he's going to a predominantly black congregation in Detroit, and that he is not going to speak. He is going to be interviewed. He is going to take questions from the audience. He does seem hell-bent to get rid of this notion that somehow he is a racist.
Yep, I think he is, and I think that Hillary is just not prepared for a positive pro-Trump campaign. She assumes that he's going to make himself outlandish and beyond the pale and say nutty things and be wacko, and he's not doing that. And Hillary is not prepared for that. I think that, and when you combine that with her lack of understanding of a four-way race, where it's not enough for people to hate both candidates and hate you a little less, they have an alternative.
That's a sad comment on the election, isn't it, Dick? Which one of these people do you hate less? Okay, go vote for that person. That's really sad. I want to ask you serious questions about immigration. Trump appears to be backing up, appears to have backed off from this. Everybody that's here illegally has got to go, and he's refined that message down to everybody who's here in a criminal in here illegally has got to go.
No, that's not true. His statement was that the first to be deported would be those who committed crimes. and that he's going to institute E-Verify to stop illegals from getting jobs, and he's going to build a wall to stop new ones from coming in. He hopes that that will be the handwriting on the wall, and that many illegals will decide to leave, but that nobody is going to be able to stay in the United States illegally or become a citizen until they return to their host country, get on the back of the line, and come here legally. He was quite explicit about that point.
It seems a whole lot more reasonable than the sound of stormtroopers marching into people's houses and yanking them out by the collars of their shirt and making them leave.
That was a fantasy of the Clinton campaign, one of the other campaigns before that, the primaries. And Trump has a very low bar here. All he has to do is convince people he's not an insane animal, and he's admissible as a candidate.
Did he get the message he needs to stop sounding crazy? Because he hasn't for a couple of weeks.
He hasn't, and he's using teleprompters, and he's giving prepared speeches, and he's thinking before he acts. He's tweeting less. I think that you're seeing a guy who had a style that was very effective in the primary and effective in his business life before that, going into a general election and learning how to run in an entirely different contest with entirely different voters. And I think he's learning the lessons. I think he's got a steep learning curve, and I think he's doing just fine.
Is this a direct result of Steve Bannon and Kelly and Conway being brought on board? Is this them?
Steve have had a lot to do with it. I think Manafort had a lot to do with it. Before, these are all pros, and they're giving professional advice to Trump, and I think it's effective. But I think it's effective not only in what they're telling him not to say, but what they're advising him to say, because they're letting the red meat get out there on immigration, on national security, on trade. It's all out there. They're not pulling it back. They're just channeling Trump's rage and passion into electorally positive currents rather than just random blowback.
All right, Dick. Fascinating. Thank you. I'm really sorry we got to cut this short and cut it off and get going. Dick Morris, Newsmax political analyst, author of Armageddon. Thanks. Up next, more of the Steve Malzberg Show. Don't go away.